The morning began like any other, though a quiet tension hung in the air that made it feel strangely new. My parents, Michael and Susan, were heading out of town for a wedding that would keep them away until late that evening. It wasn't unusual for them to leave, but what set this day apart was the trust they placed in me. At 15, I had suddenly been promoted from helper to the one in charge of both the house and, more importantly, my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan was 10, bursting with an energy that never seemed to run out. He wasn't the type to sit still for long. He bounced from one thought to the next, chasing new ideas without a hint of caution. Usually it was our parents who managed his whirlwind of curiosity, while I played the role of half-sister, half-assistant, watching from the background. But this morning I stood in the doorway, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. My mother knelt in front of me, her calm brown eyes locking onto mine with a seriousness that made my heart beat a little faster. "Emily," she said softly, but with intent, "today you're in charge. Make sure Ryan eats, stays safe, and that the house is still standing when we get back." Behind her, Ryan was already pulling faces, giggling. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll take care of Emily." I groaned, rolling my eyes, but couldn't stop a grin from forming. That was Ryan, always twisting things into a joke, always turning life into something playful. When the front door shut and the sound of their car faded into the distance, the house seemed to shift around us. It wasn't an empty quiet, not the kind that made you feel alone, but a charged stillness, full of potential. Ryan looked at me, his eyes glinting with trouble. "So, P, what now? Just TV and phones all day?" The easy thing would have been to sink into the couch and let time melt away. But something inside me stirred, a small spark of thought. How often did I really get him all to myself? He sat up, his eyes sparkling with an idea that I knew would mean trouble. "Let's cook something," he announced, puffing out his chest as if declaring a royal decree. I raised an eyebrow. "Cook, as in real food?" He nodded eagerly. "Yeah, like pancakes or something. I've seen Mom do it 100 times. How hard can it be?" I hesitated, torn between the responsible big sister and the part of me that didn't want to ruin his excitement. "All right," I said at last, "but we do this my way. No fires, no experiments, and definitely no knives." He grinned and saluted dramatically. "Yes, chef." In minutes, the kitchen turned into a battlefield of flour and laughter. Ryan took charge of mixing, which meant a cloud of white dust rising every time he moved. "You're supposed to stir, not explode it," I teased, dodging as batter splattered onto my arm. He giggled uncontrollably. "I'm improving the recipe." Somehow, amidst the chaos, the pancakes turned out edible. We sat on the counter, eating our lumpy creations straight off the spatula, proud like we'd conquered the world. For a while, it didn't matter that they were uneven or slightly burnt. It felt perfect. As the day stretched into evening, the fort still stood tall in the living room, a monument to our little adventure. Ryan yawned mid-bite, his energy finally slowing. "Do you think Mom and Dad will like it?" he murmured sleepily. I brushed a streak of flour from his cheek. "They'll love it," I said softly. He leaned his head on my shoulder, the last traces of sunlight spilling through the window, turning the room golden. For once, the house was peaceful. Not because it was quiet, but because everything felt complete. And in that moment, I realized that growing up wasn't about doing more. It was about noticing when something small had become something unforgettable. He'd seen people bake brownies online, and the spark in his eyes said he was determined to try it himself. Normally, Mom wouldn't have let him anywhere near the kitchen without supervision, but I decided today was our day to experiment. What followed was pure chaos wrapped in laughter. Flour clouds rose like tiny storms, cocoa dusted every inch of the counter, and one egg cracked a little too hard, scattering bits of shell into the bowl. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, the sound of it filling every corner of the house. The brownies came out far from perfect, the edges a bit crisp, the center uneven. But to Ryan, they were the best in the world. We carried our masterpiece back to the fort, eating warm, crumbly pieces with glasses of milk while pretending to be explorers, sharing a feast after a long adventure. As the sun sank low, the living room glowed in soft gold. The fort shimmered in the evening light, a world entirely our own. Ryan leaned against me, his body small and warm, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thanks for today. It was really fun." I wrapped my arm around him, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "Thanks for being my partner in crime," I said quietly. When our parents finally returned, they found the house standing strong, the fort still proudly intact. Ryan rushed to tell them everything: the kingdom we built, the brownies we conquered, the best sibling day ever. Mom's glance found mine, her expression holding more than words: pride, trust, and maybe even gratitude. Later that night, lying in bed, I thought about what the day had truly given me. Responsibility, I realized, wasn't just about keeping things from going wrong. It was about turning ordinary moments into memories, about choosing to be present when it would have been easier to drift away. That day, inside a fort made of blankets and laughter, I learned that the greatest adventures don't need distant places or grand plans. They just need love, imagination, and a little time to unfold. And I knew deep down that neither of us would ever forget it.